So Last of Us Part 1 originally came out in, I think, 2013 or 2014. Back then, it didn't have nearly as many accessibility features. What you're going to be playing today is the remake of that game, which had all of the sequel's accessibility features ported onto it.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm playing The Last of Us Part 1.
Yep, you're starting from the very beginning of the
starting
story.
from the beginning of the story. Yes.
Hello, and welcome back for the video that has been so long awaited here on this channel.
Yes, absolutely.
You see it already in the title. I, a blind, very much non-gamer. Caveat, very much not a gamer.
We could change that.
Yes.
We could change that.
Will today be the day? We will find out. We've done 2 videos thus far, yet to become a
Third time's
gamer.
the charm.
Will this be the one? Molly from the end of this video, jumping in to say, just kidding. We're not playing The Last of Us in this video because
we had too much fun.
We had too much fun.
Yes.
But it's going to be such an enjoyable conversation, I promise. So please stick around for this video and then Last of Us to come soon. Oh my god,
they both started at the same time.
Excuse me, notice me.
Sorry, guide dogs, it's not about you two right now.
What are you talking about?
They're like, why isn't this a guide dog video? There's 2 of us. This should be a guide dog video. Give the people what they really want, the guide dogs.
Literally, people show up to my channel not for me, it's for Dixie.
Oh,
only.
for sure.
Yes.
For sure. 80% of the people who follow me just follow for Elton. And then whenever I make that joke, they're like, no, we follow for you. I'm like, the views don't lie.
Yeah,
You
like,
watch the guide dog videos more than any other video I
literally,
make.
they always do so well.
Yes. Okay, dogs aside, they're just gonna do their thing. They will just kind of chill throughout this video. You'll be
Hopefully.
seeing them, so keep watching. If gaming doesn't appeal to you, the dogs will keep appearing, I promise. So, I have not 1, but 2 guests with me. Woohoo! We have Ross,
Yep.
who you know, we love, been here a few times before. But we also have an additional guest for the... I didn't even say what we're playing, my god. Is this really my job? Apparently not.
It's in the title.
That's true, that's true.
Yeah, you're good.
It's in the title, there we go.
Yes.
Can you introduce yourself?
Yes, yeah.
Why are you here on the couch with us,
a good
non-blind
question.
person?
That's a good question. Why are we tainting this with a sighted person?
Why is the sighty here?
So my name's Jenna. I go by Jenna Sari online. I am a producer of audio description at a company called Descriptive Video Works. And the reason I'm here is because there are a handful of video games that have come out with professionally produced audio description, and we've done all of them, including this one that we're going to be playing today, which is...
The Last of Us.
The Last of
Molly's
Us.
like, I think I forgot the name.
Yeah, I was like, I don't remember the name. What is the name? I'll just let other people talk about it.
Yep,
This has
yep.
been the most requested game for people to see me play.
Yep.
I will try not to disappoint you by being terrible at it, but I really make no promises.
I did want to ask, what do you know about this game?
It's a zombie game.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else?
No.
All
Good.
right.
Good.
Good.
That's how we want it. Jen and I were talking. We think you're going to do really well at this game.
Yeah.
Because I know, like, in the past, you know, you asked me, oh, I wish this game had audio description.
Yes.
Or, oh, I want to jump right into the action. This game
Yes.
has both of that. Like,
Okay.
we're going to jump right into the action with audio descriptions.
Okay,
Yes.
I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. I definitely the favorite game I've played so far was Forza.
Yeah.
Because it was so physical.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like I had the steering wheel, I had the pedals, and it kept me engaged the whole time.
Yep.
And it felt like there was some level of like, oh, if you mess up, something, there's like a negative consequence. I don't know,
yeah.
like it felt really like
boy.
actually
Yes.
engaging. So if this has those elements.
Oh, yes.
Oh boy.
I'm excited for you to feel the vibrations in the controller because like they're the best out of any other controller.
Because like this one implemented, this was a first for this controller, is they implemented what is also cool, but just another accessibility feature is the controller can vibrate in accordance with the speech of the characters.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Cool.
So if you are hard of hearing, you're just looking at the subtitles, you want to get an idea for like the intensity with which the characters are speaking, then you can turn that on and you can feel.
So does it almost like if the character is yelling,
Yeah.
it like vibrates
It's
harder?
stronger.
like-
Yeah.
Yes.
That's very cool.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
It also gives you an idea of like, if you are reading them and you're not looking at the character's face, then like the timing of when they're speaking.
Yeah, like
Exactly.
the cadence.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, so that's just a couple of the many accessibility features this game has. After The Last of Us Part 2 came out, so Last of Us Part 1 originally came out in, I think, 2013 or 2014. Back then, it didn't have nearly as many accessibility features. What you're going to be playing today is the remake of that game, which had all of the sequel's accessibility features ported onto it.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm playing The
Part
Last
one.
of Us Part 1.
Yep, you're starting
Yes.
from the very beginning
You're
of the
starting
story.
from the beginning of the story. Yes. Yeah. But just know there is a part 2 if you get really into it. And if you're interested,
My boyfriend actually has it.
There you
Yeah,
go.
And
awesome.
he has played it.
I only just recently beat it, actually.
Oh, really?
So, yeah,
Nice.
just like two months ago, maybe?
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
Adore it. It's
And-
one of my favorite games.
And I have like felt, because he has the PS5, he did show me the like haptics of the controller, and I thought it was so cool. So I'm definitely really excited for that element because
Oh yeah. So we did a little bit of Astro's Playroom when I first
Oh,
got
that
it.
yeah, like that's
And
a
that was
perfect
Molly's
game.
introduction to the haptics.
That's a
Yep,
good one.
that's a
Yeah.
perfect game to demonstrate just what
I
that
wish it were
controller could do.
accessible.
I
wish
know,
it were
right?
Right,
accessible.
me too.
Make Astro's Playroom accessible.
Yep. Hashtag.
I wish all games were accessible.
I know,
I wish
right? Make 'em
everything
all
ever
accessible.
was
Hashtag
accessible.
make all games accessible.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put that on the edit.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
Audio describe everything too.
Yes. Yeah. Please.
My
please.
God, there is nothing more disappointing than when somebody recommends a TV show to me or a movie,
And no audio description.
and I go to watch it and there's no audio description. I'm like, there's no point.
I
I'm not gonna
refuse
enjoy
to watch anything without
No,
ADD
me too.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But the good news is, if you're interested in the HBO TV show of this, that also has really good audio description.
Yep.
So it the
My boyfriend desperately wants me
Indeed.
to watch at least
Yeah.
1 or 2 episodes.
Yeah. I'm gonna get roasted for this. I haven't even watched the show on Max.
You have?
No.
Are you
I-
kidding me?
I watched like the first episode, and yeah.
You have to. It's
I
so
know,
good.
I know. I
the
just,
comments don't even have to roast you. I'm here to roast you right now.
Right.
It's the best game adaptation I've ever
I've
seen.
heard,
It's so
although
good.
I love the Fallout adaptation. I know it's not based off the game, so maybe that doesn't count.
It's based off of the
Like,
game universe,
the
but
universe,
it is
yeah.
a video game adaptation, so that one's good too.
Yeah.
But
It's all gibberish to
Yep.
me.
Yep.
So if it is to you, you're not alone. I'm the only one in this room who is not a gamer, and I feel outnumbered. Thank God the dogs are here. Also, I do want to say before the comments call it out, I am sitting on a pillow. Okay? Because
I wasn't gonna say anything.
well, I'm aware that within frame they can see it. So I feel like I need to say it before somebody else does. I am very short in comparison to my tall counterparts.
Yep.
I was
Oh my
trying
god,
to
imagine
stop.
if you. Well, hold on, just take the pillow off for a second.
Wait, let me sit up.
Yeah, you need the pillow.
I want to hear a bit about the audio description
Oh, for
for
sure.
this project. So, okay, you're not just involved in audio description, you seem to also be a gamer.
Yes, yeah. And that's part of the reason I got my dream job making audio description for video games. So, like, my background is all over the place. My degree is in neurobiology. I was in the Army Reserves for 8 years. I was in pharmaceuticals.
Wow.
And then I just kind of got into this hobby of audio describing stuff because of another content creator named Sightless Combat, who posted to the subreddit for a game that I loved, saying, hey, there's this really cool scene later in the game where there's like an emotional reveal, but it's primarily visual storytelling. Here's what audio description is. Could someone write up like a transcript of this scene because I want to know what's going on? And I like read it and I was like, oh, that's so cool. I didn't know audio description existed. That's kind of neat. I didn't know there were rules about it. So I got in touch with him and wrote a transcript for it. And then that just kind of snowballed because I loved it. And it turned out I had a knack for it and it was a lot of fun. And he and I together ended up writing audio description for that entire game, for God of War, and released it on his YouTube channel just as like a fan project because we both loved that game so much. And then he encouraged me to kind of start taking some more classes and like getting into it a little more. And between him and a couple of other people in the blind gaming community, I eventually got in touch with DVW, who at the time happened to be looking for someone who knew a lot about video games. And I also happened to be kind of in the mood for a career change at the time. So from my perspective, my dream job fell out of the sky. And
Your dream job you didn't even know existed.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
from their perspective, the perfect person for this new position they needed fell into their lap.
Yep.
So it worked out really, really well. So now I end up doing audio description for a lot of gaming projects, a lot of, I do live description for a lot of live events. And we've also since done the audio description for Mortal Kombat 1, Spider-Man 2, and Star Wars Outlaws that just came out pretty recently.
Yep.
So we get to work on so much fun stuff all the time, and I love my job so much.
I mean, I've watched a lot of shows with Descriptive Video Works
Yes.
as the company behind the AD.
Yeah.
I'm obviously very familiar with AD. How does the process of writing it and incorporating it work? And I'm curious because not all AD is created equal. Some's great, some is very much not so much. So I'm curious about the behind the scenes process of that for both video games and television.
Yeah, so the vast majority of what we do is for movies and TV. Video games are still kind of a very small part of it because it's still relatively new for games, and also the structure is just completely different. So for movies and TV shows, we received the final finished version of it where all of the visuals are and all of the sound is like locked down and finalized. Then it goes through a script writing process, which takes a long time. Our rule of thumb is it's like between, you can write audio description script for about 8 to 15 minutes of media per hour of uninterrupted work.
Wow.
So a movie will probably take a couple days of uninterrupted work. A TV show might take a little bit longer. Then it goes through a QC process where we have an internal quality control based on our advisory council, of which Ross is a member.
Yep.
Yeah, where we reach out to our listeners and our community and our audience just to find out what should we be changing about our norms and practices to keep up with current, what should we be sensitive about? What are some social changes? What are people wanting out of narrative performances?
Right.
What should we change? And after that QC process, it then goes to a professional narrator who will record it either in studio or remotely with a recordist, and then it goes to mixers, and then the mixers work their magic, and then it goes back to the client. But with video games, it's completely different because games follow a structure of, most video games, I should say, all games are different, but it follows a structure mostly of gameplay followed by cinematics. So the gameplay portion is the portion where you, the player, is in control and you're expected to do something to get to the next point. The cinematics are what happen when you succeed in getting to that point, and then the game is essentially just showing you a movie of what happens next, of here's the next portion of the story. You don't have to do anything during that, you're just supposed to relax and let the story happen. So typically those cinematics are what get audio description because those have a set timing, they're more predictable.
Right.
And from the game engine point of view, it's easier to have a pre-recorded voice in there than it is for when the player is in control. So we receive those cinematics as dozens or hundreds of different video clips, and we have to kind of mentally fill in the context for those clips with recordings of the gameplay. So one scene might be 5 different videos and then 10 different recordings of someone playing through the game in between those videos.
Yeah.
And then we have to write the script for those videos and record it, and we have so little context sometimes that we have to fill things in with assumptions, and the game is never done by the time we're writing for it. So when we record our audio description, when we record our narration, it has to be done by the time the game is done, which means other things in the game are not done. So we are looking at the game with sometimes the characters don't have hair because the hair isn't done yet. Sometimes they don't have facial expressions. It's just a blank mannequin face.
Interesting.
Sometimes they swap out entire outfits and they have to tell us about that. Sometimes they change the time of day or the lighting, and we have to...
those are all very important details for creating
for audio
the audio
description.
Yeah.
Yes. So we have to kind of fill things in with assumptions to make it work, or be intentionally vague or ambiguous about certain details because they don't know what things are going to turn out to be by the time it gets done. But then when it all comes together, we kind of get to see the finished product. And when it works, it's so rewarding. It's so great because we get to experience oh man, that's what that looks like, or oh, that worked so well, or that ended up being a really cool decision. And then we get to do really cool creative things that just aren't in movies and TV. That just get to you get to write new rules for yourself because it hasn't been done before. Nobody's been in this situation before. And that's where the really fun part of the job comes in. A lot of it is it's pretty conventional. You follow the audio description rules. You do your best to describe the visuals on screen. But then we get to do some cool, innovative stuff as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, can I share, since we're in a safe space of audio description?
Oh yeah,
friends,
absolutely.
Yes, please.
one of my biggest irritants with audio description,
Mhm.
it drives me insane. As somebody who watches a lot of documentaries, reality, true crime, when there's subtitles on the screen because it's inaudible
Yep.
and they don't read
Oh my
the
God.
subtitles.
That is like
What are you doing?
That is-
They're written on the screen
Yeah.
because they've determined we can't hear what's being said. And you are just like,
But you have magical hearing abilities, don't
yeah,
you?
yeah. Can you just hear what they're saying? Can you just like translate?
it drives me insane.
Interesting.
It drives me. It
That's-
happens more often than you would
Yeah,
think.
I mean that's
Yeah.
like 80 101. If someone's missing that,
If there's
that's-
subtitles on screen, the subtitles take priority.
Yes.
They always take priority. Same with like titles or credits. Like that is one of the cardinal rules of audio description. But now I'm paranoid. Is that, oh God, have we done that? Like I'm gonna be rethinking all
That's
of
mostly
anything.
documentary stuff.
I think another thing that happens in AD with like subtitles is like I've noticed, especially I think DVW has done this where they'll have a different AD narrator read the subtitles. So like I think go ahead and like plug Steve Saylor, who's another blind gamer and YouTuber. He voiced the AD for Jabba the Hutt in Star Wars Outlaws.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that was a lot of fun. We actually, that one was another cool experiment thing that we got to do because most of the time the narrator will be like a little neutral when they're reading subtitles and they'll kind of try to match the performance of whoever they are reading the subtitles for. But I told Steve to be Jabba, like do a Jabba the Hutt impression over top of it because Jabba the Hutt is so like wild and out there.
So Molly, Jabba the Hutt is a giant, 15-foot slug
Yes,
creature
yeah.
with a deep, growly voice.
He's the guy that's like, oh, how solo. I can't do it. I can't do it.
That was
But,
great.
like,
That was really
That was spot on.
He's an alien, so he doesn't speak English.
I'm
Yes.
glad you knew to give me context.
Yes.
Yeah.
I knew that's just
One
like,
day
you're
I will
right.
get
Like-
I'm getting her to video games, and
Yeah.
up next is
I
Star
mean, you're-
Wars. So.
Excellent.
You're surrounded by nerds, so like there's so much like
So sorry.
implicit information that we just know that we're like, oh god, we gotta explain that.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But
And then
traditionally-
I'm sitting here and I'm like, okay, so the new YSL lipstick launch. Have you guys seen it?
But like the Jabba the Hutt is almost never subtitled, or sorry, he's never dubbed. So he just has subtitles on screen, and he tends to talk in this very low, slow cadence that's very distinct. So we directed Steve Saylor to like kind of match his performance. So he's reading it in English, like doing a Jabba the Hutt impression. And in my opinion, it worked really well. But
Yeah.
I'm like, of course, I'm always listening to see like what people think and everything, because people have been wanting more emotive performances from narrators lately. So I don't know. We get to like try things out a little bit and see if people like it and adjust based on what the feedback is.
Yeah.
One interesting thing that I recently experienced with audio description was, okay, there's gonna be some judgment here, I feel it, but just stick with me.
I'll look away.
I love Love is Blind.
Okay.
I've committed from the beginning. I'm on season 7 of the US. I've obviously watched the UK for season 1. And I don't watch the international ones because that's just not fun.
Okay.
Because it's all dubbing.
Oh,
And
Yeah.
I can't see the emotion on the faces,
Yep.
and it's
Yep.
all like emotionless dubbing, so it's not fun for me. Anyways, so I watched the UK one, which obviously was audio described by a different company. It was they used like a UK audio
Yep.
description
Yep.
company, and what was fascinating was the vast difference
Oh, yes.
Yep, I
in
knew you
the
were gonna say it.
style
Yes.
of
Yes.
the UK
Yes.
audio description versus the US audio description.
Yep.
I was like actually giggling. Like
Yeah.
I was like, oh my god, the UK's savage with their AD. It is
It's
hysterical.
so different. Yeah.
It's
It
so
really
different.
is.
Honestly, I like couldn't figure out if it felt like
Judgmental.
like wrong or not. Like
Yeah.
I was like, is this okay? Like it was and look, I grew up, I would say like culturally Irish because my parents are both Irish background. And so like I was raised with a more UK Irish sense of humor, very dry, very sarcastic, very blunt, very bold. And like you get it or you don't. So like I enjoyed it. I thought it was funny, but and like the US or North America's tends to be more like politically correct and like
it's objective. It's like it follows the rules a lot more strictly. It places emphasis on only say what you can see.
Yes.
And whereas the UK style is a lot more prosaic and presumptuous.
Yes, it was so presumptuous.
Yeah.
At times I was like, I don't know that you can assume that. Like
Yeah.
it was like really weird to me.
They'll talk about things like character thoughts.
Yes,
Exactly.
I was shocked. I was like,
But that's just their style.
That's where you'll start to like get opinions, presuming intent.
Yeah.
Right,
Because
that's
it's
what was
not-
fascinating to me where I was like, I don't know that you could assume that.
Exactly.
Like there were like it would be like he looks embarrassed about his past.
Yeah,
I was like,
exactly.
But you don't know that he looks embarrassed about his past.
It's art. It's up to interpretation.
Yeah.
Yes, like, I was like, can you decide that this embarrassment was about his past? Like, or can you just say he looks embarrassed and
Exactly.
it's up to me, the viewer, to determine why I think
Exactly.
he's embarrassed.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that was what I found like very jarring, and it was like consistent.
Yeah.
And it would also be like kind of rude sometimes. Like I was like saying
I mean, that's
things
just
and I was
British
like,
humor, you know?
Yes.
yeah, that's what I mean.
Very
Like, so
blunt,
that
very
part, like
blunt.
growing up with
Yeah.
like that more Irish sense of humor, which correlates with the the UK sense of humor. Like that part to me, I understood because that's like the type of how my family speaks at home, you know, and like the type of humor and stuff that I'm used to.
But when you're used to the North American style of audio
It's
description,
jarring.
It's jarring. It's very jarring.
Yes. It's like I'm used to hearing people talk like that, but not an AD.
Right.
Like that's where I was like, oh, that's kind of sassy. That's kind of sassy for AD to be saying that about somebody. And then the presumption, that was like what really caught me off guard, where I was like, oh, I don't know if that's okay to do that. Like it felt like you're doing something that isn't your role as AD.
Yeah. But I'm curious, like a lot of people I know just don't really notice or care about the difference. Like like for a lot of people, it's just like it reads more like a novel with an omniscient narrator.
Yeah.
And
that's what it.
you just kind of want like the novelization of the TV show rather than complete objectivity. Sometimes I don't share that opinion personally, but like that's something that I've heard from a few people.
Yeah.
But like there is still an inherent amount of subjectivity with the scripting where it is creative. Even the North American style is a little bit creative because like you're supposed to look at a scene, if you're a sighted writer, you're supposed to look at a scene and kind of make your judgments, but then dissect what made you make that judgment.
Right.
So if a room is like opulent and fancy, you're supposed to dissect, okay, what made me think that? Is it like the crystal chandelier? Is it the warm lighting? Is it like the rich carpet or something? And then you'll pick out things and you'll select vocabulary and adjectives that give you those vibes. Yeah. And the goal is not to tell the viewer your impressions. The goal is to bring, hopefully,
help them come to that conclusion.
The same conclusion.
Correct.
Yes. But they might not. Yeah.
The vocabulary is the best part, and I really want you to tell about Mortal Kombat 1 description.
Oh gosh, yes.
I love hearing about this.
So it's Mortal Kombat is a very, very violent game, and it is known for having like a somewhat cheesy, like kind of kung fu movie kind of storyline, but then also during the fights themselves, it's a fighting game. At the end of the fight, if you win, you get to perform a finisher on your opponent, which is usually very violent and gory, and it involves like...
That would be so much fun to describe.
It's amazing. It's my favorite part of my job. It's so great. I'm probably on a list somewhere of all of the things that I have Googled. I don't know how many synonyms there can be for bisecting. I don't know why there's so much bisecting, but you have to select like vocabulary that doesn't tone it down. You don't want to water down the intensity of the violence because that's the point. That the visuals are incredibly gory and violent, so you select vocabulary that is every part as shocking as the visuals are. Yeah.
Thank you. It's such an interesting, and obviously like we're going off track here, but I think this is an important conversation, and like it's interesting to me because these are things that I care about. Is it's about us having equal access and you not gatekeeping that access, right?
Yes.
Like your goal is to open the gate, and I saw this conversation on social media happening around ASL interpretation.
Yeah.
And somebody said, as an ASL interpreter who is like cisgendered and white, if I'm interpreting for someone who uses the N-word or who uses like a gay slur, I won't interpret that. And I was like, that feels like you're you're removing that person's access to knowing who that person you're interpreting for is as a person.
Yes.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
I deserve equal access to knowing what is being said, and your job is not to censor that access, it is to provide that access.
That is
Absolutely.
something.
And you're silencing the speaker.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah,
silencing the speaker
quite
and you're
literally.
removing the access to the person who needs that interpretation.
Mhm.
And like it feels like your stance of being morally right by not using those terms is actually morally wrong in the context of your job.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's how I feel
perfectly
about
put.
it.
No.
Yeah.
And I'm not somebody who obviously requires ASL, but when I like put that into the context of AD,
Right.
like you're saying, like
Yeah.
our job isn't to censor how gory it is, it's to allow you to understand how gory it is.
Right.
Yeah.
And to match that tone in the description we use. And I'd just be curious to like open this up as a conversation in the comments, especially if you are somebody who does use ASL. I'm curious your thoughts on this, or if you
Yeah.
are an interpreter, because it created a great dialogue in the comment section of that
Right.
person's TikTok from other interpreters, some of whom were like, wow, I hadn't considered this, others who were like, absolutely disagree with you, that is not our job to censor, and then other people were like, totally, like, and it was just fascinating to see the conversation, and I think it's a conversation that I'm intrigued to have in the comments of this video.
Because
For sure.
something I have to be, I mean, I'm a cisgendered white-sided person, so I need to be very conscious of my biases and my privileges. And something that I heard, I can't remember, I've heard it from a few different sources in the accessibility community, but in my own opinion, my discomfort with conveying certain tones or themes is less important than being accurate and providing access. So
That's so important.
if it's so I need to give my discomfort a back seat to providing that access. So that is something that we also sometimes have to think about in audio description, because if there are racial slurs in the form of notes or graffiti or subtitles or other on-screen text, we're going to have to write that, and our narrators have to read that.
Yes.
So that is something that we need to do. It's a necessary part of providing equal access.
Exactly. And I even find it in my own life when my friends or family, or sometimes strangers, are providing live audio description of like what's happening in life.
Yes.
To me, some people are more comfortable saying, oh, a black woman or a gay man, like they're more comfortable like being completely transparent about who the person is or what they're looking at.
Yeah.
And other people actually don't want to say that. Like it's very, it tells me more about them than anything.
We don't see color.
Like it's very fascinating,
Yeah.
people who feel uncomfortable just like vocalizing what they're seeing.
Yeah. Because that is something that is visible. Like that is something we can see, and we take for granted that we're constantly able to see someone's race, and yet somehow we're uncomfortable conveying that information.
And representation matters.
Yes,
you know?
exactly.
Yeah.
Or somebody's gender expression.
Yes.
Or the size of their body. Like people will feel like, oh, there's things that I shouldn't say out loud, but it's not offensive or rude to tell you what something looks like.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah.
Yep.
For sure.
Also, speaking of audio description, this was super fascinating to me as well. Recently, my boyfriend and I have been watching like all 10 seasons of Friends. And we went to Canada. We were in BC, so we were watching, like, Friends in the US is on HBO Max, and then Friends in Canada is on Crave.
Yeah.
And so we were watching it on Crave versus on HBO, and the AD was different.
Yep.
The audio
Yeah.
description
Oh,
provider was
dude.
different.
Yeah.
Do not open this can of worms with us.
hate
Like
this.
we
hate
will
this.
we will talk so much
Right.
about this. Like
I'm
So
not really
basically-
curious. I need to know.
The licensing for which shows and movies exist with different streaming services in different regions. So the audio description and the captioning will be different depending on the platform that it's released on. It could even be different based on which TV network it's released on. and we've been fighting for pass-through for the same AD to be like
consistent
paired with the source media for years.
Because if a piece of content gets taken off, like Netflix, for example, and moves to a different streaming service,
it loses it.
Yeah,
no,
it loses it,
it has
and
to
they
be
have to
redone.
Yeah, because it's
That's
licensing.
terrible.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
terrible.
And so, like,
And we hate it. We hate that. We want there to just be more...
a consistent track.
Yes,
Yeah.
we want consistency, and we want the audio description to be widely available, because like even if the audio description exists on a streaming platform somewhere, if you're in the wrong region, you can't view it.
Yes,
Yeah.
I have had that happen. And
Yeah.
something that was, again, fascinating, because scripting is going to differ depending on who's scripting the AD.
Yes.
And it was funny because for the I'll be there for you, like intro scene, in Canada, it was like Phoebe, a tall blonde woman.
Yeah.
Ross, and it's like describing their visuals, whereas in the US, when I watch it, it goes, Ross, played by David Schwimmer. Like, it does not describe what they look like. It tells me the character and the actor's name.
Interesting.
And in Canada, it doesn't tell me the actor's name. It tells me the character and what it looks like. So it was like very interesting to see the same opening credits were described. They chose to describe completely different elements of those opening credits.
Yep.
Well, yeah, I mean, if I were able to give my opinion, like, I feel like the credits for who plays which character is also going to be at the end. So I think it's better to describe what the character looks like in the intro, because it's the intro. I don't know. That makes sense to me.
Yeah, it was really interesting because I've seen Friends so many times, like from childhood.
Yeah.
And when it said like Phoebe, a tall blonde, I like never knew she was tall. And then I said that to my boyfriend, and he was like, "Oh yeah, she's like the tallest of the girls for sure. Like she is the." And I was like, "Whoa, that is like how many times have I seen this? That is new information." So that was really interesting. And then another weird, frustrating thing, which I feel like I'm going to be preaching to the choir. You guys will totally get this frustration. Is season 7 of Friends on HBO Max? 80 changes. Different narrator. Went from a female for the first 6 seasons to a male for the 7th season. And it like was genuinely jarring for me.
Yeah.
Like I was like, oh god. Like when it started and all of a sudden a male voice came on, it like took me out of it. And also like he just wasn't as good. I didn't like him as much. I didn't like his tone as much as I liked hers.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's so frustrating that I can get through the first 6 seasons of this show that I love with AD that I really enjoy. It's not that I don't, like I've gotten used to it. It was a change. You have to, whenever there's a change, you have to get used to it. And I have, but like she was objectively better in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I'm like, damn, now the last 4 seasons are like a different and now I'm like, will it switch again?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like generally I think most companies try to keep it the same, but sometimes it's up to the streaming service which narrator they pick, and sometimes they don't always listen to.
Or they might have just gone with a completely different company.
Yeah,
for the
that
AD
too.
for that season.
But it's so weird because this isn't a show that's rolling out in current real time where maybe the AD company going out of business or that voice character isn't doing it anymore.
Right.
Like, this is a show from the 90s and early 2000s.
Yeah. Right.
They would have AD'd all 10 seasons at once.
That's so strange though. Yeah. Like that's
someone lost their jobs.
Or, I don't know.
Contracts,
but like that's weird. I mean, obviously you try to avoid that if at all possible, but God, that is upsetting.
It was annoying.
Yeah.
Yeah. For sure.
Okay. Now that we've had all the AD jamming
have fun
out of the
editing
way,
that.
Yes.
I think this is going to be part 1, part 2 situation if I'm going to guess. Because I don't know, maybe it's just because I use audio description I found this whole conversation fascinating. But I do feel like a lot of people on my channel would find this.
Well, hey, it's right on theme with Last of Us Part 1 and Part 2. So audio description Part 1, Part 2.
There you go. Yes.
Go to part 2 to watch me actually finally play the game. Honestly, I enjoyed this conversation so much that I don't want to cut anything, but this video would be way too long if we dive right into playing now, because I already know we're going to be playing for a long time. So we're actually going to cut this video right here, and I really hope that the comment section will join in on UK versus US audio description debate, access around language. I'm like really intrigued to hear everybody else's opinions. And stick around because part 2 will be dropping next week, where I will actually finally be playing The Last of Us on perhaps a pink controller?
Yes.
Yes.
indeed.
Yeah, we brought different colors because, you know, we love to express ourselves with colors. Even though we are blind, blind people care about colors, in case you guys didn't know.
Yes. Well, looking at my apartment, yeah, I think you could tell that I care about color. So, we will see you in the next video. Until then, you can click over here to watch Ross and I play Forza, or over here to see my first ever blind girl gaming experience.
Woo.
Bye!